Welcome to this Mascot Audio Deep Dive, a thoughtful exploration of engaging conversations, powerful ideas, and transformative insights. Let's dive in and uncover the stories and themes that resonate at the heart of the discussion.
Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling something that sounds a bit academic, but I promise you it's going to be anything but boring. We're talking about early warning and early response, and we're working with some excerpts from a peace studies text. And one of the most interesting things about it is that it turns out there are warning signs for just about everything, from relationship drama to full-blown global crises. Luckily, we have our expert here with us today, a master at seeing the patterns and connections that most others just completely miss.
I'm glad to be back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
It really is fascinating how interconnected everything is.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's just start with the basics. What exactly is early warning and early response?
Well, early warning is all about recognizing those subtle signals that something might be off. Kind of like your car's check engine light, but for every situation you can imagine, it's all about gathering information, analyzing patterns, and spotting those early indicators before a situation really starts to escalate.
So like those little hints that maybe you should have switched lanes a little sooner to avoid that traffic jam.
Exactly. An early response is where the real magic happens. That's taking action based on those early warning signals. Think of it like this. If your car's check engine light comes on, you wouldn't just ignore it, right? You take it to a mechanic and get it checked out.
That makes sense. So it's not just about seeing the warning signs. It's about having a plan in place to actually do something about them.
Precisely. And this applies to so many different areas of our lives, from preventing conflicts to preparing for disasters to making better personal decisions. It's about being proactive, not reactive.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how this applies beyond just global politics and stuff like that. But what kinds of check engine lights are we talking about here?
Well, the source material dives into three main types of early warning systems. First up, we have conflict early warning. This is all about identifying those simmering tensions. Political instability, social unrest, economic inequality, all those types of things that could potentially erupt into violence.
So kind of like sensing that tension in a room before an argument breaks out.
Exactly. Then we have disaster early warning, which is pretty self-explanatory. Natural disasters like earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis. But it also includes man-made disasters, things like industrial accidents or pandemics.
You know, I remember that earthquake in California a few years back. Those early warning alerts on our phones gave us just enough time to take cover. It might not sound like much, but those few seconds really did make a difference.
Absolutely. That's a great example of how even small actions taken early on can have a huge impact. The final type that's mentioned in the source is hazards assessment. This one's a bit more focused. It's like evaluating the specific risks in a very specific situation. Say, a potential gas leak at a local school.
Okay, so instead of just waiting for something bad to happen, we're actively trying to anticipate and prevent it. That makes sense. But how do we actually SBOT these early warning signs? What are some things we should be paying attention to?
Well, the source talks about these early warning indicators, which are basically the telltale signs that something might be amiss. And what's really interesting here is that these indicators can be all over the map: economic, environmental, social, political, you name it. It's all connected.
Wow, so it's not just about reading the news headlines. It's about understanding how all these different factors are influencing one another.
Exactly. Let's start with economic indicators. A sudden spike in unemployment, rising inflation, or a decline in certain industries. These can be early warning signs of much broader economic troubles. Think about the housing crisis back in 2008. There were tons of early warning signs that things were headed south.
So it's like those financial experts who are always saying, don't just look at the stock prices, look at the underlying trends.
Precisely. And then you have your environmental indicators: deforestation, unusual weather patterns, declining water resources. These can all signal potential environmental disasters. And then think about how these environmental changes could lead to conflicts over scarce resources.
It's kind of wild to think that a drought in one part of the world could spark a conflict in a completely different part of the world, like some kind of domino effect.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And that's really what this topic forces us to do: connect those seemingly random dots. Let's move on to social indicators. These are all about the well-being and stability of communities: rising crime rates, increased social inequality, a decline in trust in institutions. All of those can be warning signs of social unrest or even violence.
So it's not just about looking at the statistics, it's about paying attention to the mood of a community, how people are feeling and how they're interacting with each other.
Absolutely. And that brings us to political indicators, which are probably the most obvious when we think about conflict. Authoritarian crackdowns, restrictions on freedom of speech, or a rise in extremist ideologies can all be pretty serious red flags. Think about how the Arab Spring uprisings were fueled by a combination of these political and social indicators.
So it's like a pressure cooker building up until eventually something has to give.
That's a powerful analogy. And remember, all of these indicators don't exist in isolation. They often interact and reinforce each other. For example, economic hardship can fuel political instability, which can then lead to social unrest and violence.
This is already making me think about things in a whole new light. So we've covered economic, environmental, social, and political indicators. What other types of signals should we be aware of?
Well, the source also mentions security indicators, which focus on factors that could threaten peace and stability, like the proliferation of weapons or the emergence of armed groups.
Okay, things are definitely starting to escalate at this point. What about when individual safety is at stake?
That's a critical area. And the source digs into what it calls individual security and safety indicators, things like rising crime rates, especially violent crime, as well as domestic violence, human trafficking, and even targeted attacks on specific groups.
So this category gets very specific, looking at threats that can really hit close to home. Does the source address how these things play out in different areas, like rural versus urban communities?
It does. It brings up rural indicators, highlighting the unique challenges that are faced by rural populations, land disputes, environmental degradation impacting livelihoods, lack of access to essential services. These can all contribute to conflict and instability in these areas.
It's interesting how the source also connects education to all of this.
You're picking up on something really crucial. When it comes to educational indicators, the source argues that a decline in educational quality or access can have ripple effects throughout society, contributing to poverty, limiting opportunities, even fueling frustration and resentment.
So investing in education isn't just about individual advancement, it's about building a more stable and peaceful society.
Exactly. And finally, we have demographic indicators. This category looks at how changes in population, things like migration patterns, rapid population growth, or even the aging of a population, can put a strain on resources, infrastructure, and social systems.
It's amazing how all of these seemingly random factors, population shifts, education trends, crime rates, can all be pieces of the same puzzle.
And that's precisely why this field is so important. It forces us to think systematically, to connect the dots, and to recognize that even small changes in one area can have huge repercussions in other areas.
Okay, so we've talked about all these different types of check engine lights, those early warning indicators, but now the big question is, what do we do about them?
Well, welcome back to the deep dive. So now that we've unpacked all those check engine lights, those early warning indicators, let's shift gears and talk about what to do when those lights start flashing. That's where early response comes in.
Okay, so we've identified those subtle signals, those red flags. Now what? How do we actually translate all of this information into action?
That's the crucial question, really. Early warning without action is completely pointless. It's like having a smoke detector that's going off, but no one even bothers to check for a fire. Early response is all about being proactive, taking steps to prevent those negative outcomes before they even have a chance to escalate.
You know, it makes me think of that saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Exactly. Early response is all about that ounce of prevention. It's about being prepared, being adaptable, and being ready to act decisively when those warning signs appear. Think of it like having a fire extinguisher in your kitchen. You hope you never have to use it, but it's there just in case.
Okay, that's a great analogy. So it's not just about reacting after something bad happens. It's about taking steps to prevent those bad things from happening in the first place.
You got it.
Yeah.
An early response can take so many different forms, depending on the situation.
So we've covered a lot of ground today in this deep dive, from those very subtle warning signs to the complexities of early response. But what does it all mean for our listeners? What can they take away from this and apply to their own lives?
It's about awareness, really.
Yeah.
Now that you know about these early warning indicators, you can start paying attention to those subtle signals.
And remember, even the smallest actions can create a huge ripple effect of positive change. Until next time, keep diving deep.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want the full course and even more amazing courses, download the Mascot audio app. It's completely free on iOS and Android. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who will find it useful. See you in the next one. Thank you for joining this audiobook conversation deep dive. We hope the insights shared sparked new ideas and broadened your perspective. Remember, every great conversation has the power to inspire change and growth. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and stay curious.